And just like that, it's time for our weekly roundup of all the things Lady just ain't gonna do this week. Number 1, be the Grinch and not pass legislation for voting rights or infrastructure before the holidays. So, what the fuck are we doing here, people? I mean, how is it that we're just about a year into this administration and we've gotten basically 2 small stimulus checks after almost 2 years in a pandemic where basically the global economy was rocked? It was fucked up. Now look, everything ain't up to the president and vice president, but they do have a lot of power. And I want to make sure y'all understand the power of persuasion that they have. Now, you better believe they can make it real hard for people who don't toe the line. So what the fuck are we doing? You heard it here first. Lady predicts that if we go into the midterms with nothing, we finna come out of the midterms with nothing. And when I say that, I mean Dems finna lose up and down the ticket. And you know what that means? It's basic math. It means you ain't getting shit for at least another 2 years, but you may need to chalk it up to 6. So make those calls, people. To take action, visit our Electoral Action Center at blackfutureslab.org. Other things Lady just ain't gonna do this week is leave your child to fend for theyself after they done shot up a school with a gun you bought them that they ain't had no business having in the first place. Now, last week, a 15-year-old high school sophomore shot and killed 4 students and injured 8 others, 7 other students and a teacher. This was the 222nd school shooting of this year alone, making 2021 the deadliest year on record. There were 100 more school shootings in 2021 than in 2019 or 2018, which prior to this year was the second and third deadliest years on record. School shootings are devastating, but this by far is one of the worst stories to unfold that I've heard probably in my lifetime. Now, as the autopsy of how this happened in the first place came out, we learned that there were several tragic events that led to this one. First, the school reported at least twice in the days prior to the shooting, including the morning of the shooting, that the student shooter was displaying very troubling behavior. He was searching for ammunition on his cell phone and a teacher caught it. He did a drawing of a person who was shot and bleeding with the words, "Blood everywhere. The thoughts won't stop. Help me. My life is useless and the world is dead." Now, the parents were called into a meeting with the school and a counselor and their son that morning, who had by that time scratched out the drawings of the gun and the bloody figure along with the words. Now, the parents refused to take their son out of the school after having this meeting with the counselor and the school district, and yet he was allowed to go back to the classroom. Now, later that day, he opened fire outside of a bathroom, and when he was apprehended, he still had more than 18 rounds of ammunition left over. Now, this is heartbreaking. But then, get what happens next. Their son was charged as an adult with terrorism, murder, and other counts, and appeared in court with a court-appointed lawyer, usually reserved for those who cannot afford legal representation. On Friday, the district attorney announces that she is going to charge the parents for not securing the gun and for allowing the 15-year-old free access to it. Now, we learned that the parents bought him the gun just a few days earlier and gave the weapon to the son as an early Christmas present. Now, shortly after announcing the charges, we then learned that the parents done come up missing. For hours, police and the U.S. Marshals and the FBI and all these other people searched for these people, and they were found in a warehouse hiding. They was trying to get the fuck out the country. Now, they appeared in court to enter not guilty pleas with lawyers that they hired for themselves. Now, there's so much that hurts me about this. I'm not even sure where to start, but there's something about these parents not parenting this child that really hurts my heart. I mean, you get told on more than one occasion that your child is struggling with some serious emotional issues and you fucking do nothing? Now, that child was arraigned alone. Where were the parents? On the run, trying to escape accountability for what happens when your ideology has real impacts on people. The selfishness of leaving your child to deal with the consequences while you try and escape them, and then provide for yourself, but not the child? I mean, I just fucking can't. This child is going to spend the rest or the majority of his life in prison. He's being tried as an adult. The parents will probably spend a few years in jail, and we're still going to have a fucked up system where the child doesn't get help, where the parents don't get help, where the students he killed are still dead, and school shootings continue. This was avoidable in so many ways. And in the devastation that's been left behind, we should be demanding more safeguards. Why did a 15-year-old get access to a gun? Why? Other things that Lady just ain't gonna do this week is Jussie Smollett being convicted of faking a hate crime against himself. All right, y'all, look. Lady really debated as to whether or not to even bring this on the pod, but I guess we're doing a theme here where this week we're talking about what happens when there's no help to address what's going on underneath. Now, this week, Jussie Smollett was convicted of filing a false police report about an alleged hate crime committed against himself. Now, look, I don't think we even have time on this podcast to get into all the intricacies of this case, but suffice it to say, it don't add up, and neither do the responses to this case. Now, I hate to say this, y'all, but our brother, and he is our brother, he is not a political prisoner. He's not a political prisoner getting hemmed up by racist, corrupt police. I mean, he might be a political prisoner in the sense that he's getting hemmed up by the impacts of capitalism and how we respond to the alienation of an economic system that leaves our society vapid. But it's still a stretch. Lady will, however, say this. This case never should have gotten to this point on either side. We've still not heard the full story from Jussie, and maybe we never will. And I'm not finna lose one wink of sleep over learning what the truth is in this story. It don't make sense to me, but it doesn't need to. What I see is something going on underneath that needs healing and needs attention. That's my only concern. And never, ever should we have used resources or this system to address that part. Prosecuting Jussie ain't gonna help get him the help he needs. Hopefully he doesn't spend a second in jail and instead gets offered some options that can get to the root of why we even got here in the first place. Let's move on to things that Lady loves this week. Here's what we want more of, okay? Number one, boosters for everyone. Now, word out on the street is that the CDC has approved booster shots for 16 and 17-year-olds. Let's go, folks. It's also flu season, and people are nasty out here in these streets. So go get vaxxed, save a life, especially your own. Other things Lady loves this week is that W. Kamau Bell does a documentary on Bill Cosby being guilty as fuck, and it got accepted at Sundance. I love this so, so much. W. Kamau Bell, a guest of ours on this illustrious show, and my friend, has just had a documentary accepted at Sundance Film Festival about the not-so-illustrious serial rapist Bill Cosby. Now, the project is called We Need to Talk About Cosby, and you know what? Yes, the fuck we do. Now, what I appreciate so much about this approach is that we're not just inquiring about if, okay? More than 60 women told their stories, so it's not if he did it. It's that he did do it, and too many fucking people protected him and threw these women away, and that's what we need to motherfucking talk about. Now, why are we complicit when someone plays a hero on TV, but in real life he's literally awful and committing acts of violence over and over again with no remorse whatsoever? Let me take my hat off and salute Kamau. Thank you, brother, because we need to have these conversations. They are long overdue. Good luck to your film, my friend. Other things Lady loves this week is Starbucks in Buffalo, New York will be the first one in the world, honey, to unionize. Now, this is the first ever union of its kind for the global chain retailer. Workers voted 19-8 to unionize at the Elmwood location in Buffalo, New York. There are 2 more stores in the area that are voting as to whether or not to unionize, and we're still waiting to see the results. One supposedly rejected it, but now we want to recount, and the other ones we don't know. But needless to say, this is huge for the labor movement, and it's huge for workers. It is deeply unfortunate that the Starbucks opposed the union, saying something about how they work best when they can work directly with employees. But that's just corporation speak for, we would like to continue to pay you what we want to pay you, regardless of whether or not that's actually good for you or fair or whatever. Now, the workers voted to unionize so they could have more say over their pay and staffing, as they grappled with what they say is faulty equipment and staffing shortages. Lady thinks that this will continue to be a trend across the nation, as staffing shortages abound because people just aren't fucking willing anymore, because it feels like the end of the world to just take whatever somebody is willing to give you. And Lady, for one, is all the way here for it. Shout out to the unions. Other things that Lady loves this week is legal residents without U.S. citizenship get the right to vote in municipal elections in New York City. Now, this is really exciting and amazing. The New York City City Council easily passed a proposal this week for legal permanent residents without U.S. citizenship to vote in municipal elections, effectively enfranchising nearly 1 million people in New York who pay taxes but have no legal say over who represents them. Until now. Now, we love to see it, honey. The whole foundation of this country was based on a rebellion with the message, no taxation without representation. So, way to go, New York City, for taking the message of the original colonizers and putting it to good use, honey. And boo, boo, boo to current New York City Mayor de Blasio for being too chicken shit to support it. At least you didn't veto it, child. But you could have done more. You ain't running again. Anyways, moving on. Next thing Lady loves this week is that Sex and the City reboot is here, but it's getting mixed reviews. Well, y'all know how much I love me some Sex and the City. And much ado has been made of a reboot of my most favorite show, and the reviews thus far are meh. Now, I can be a lover of the franchise and be honest about it too. I don't need it to be anything but what it is, which is a pretty mess with a lot of trash. Now, they had seriously, one. It was Blair Underwood, and he played a sports doctor who was Miranda's boyfriend for a hot minute, and she couldn't tell him she loved him because she was still in love with Steve. But look, I digress. I'm telling you, I'm a fan. They had one black character in 6 whole long-ass seasons. The way they portrayed trans and gay people was trash as fuck, and these ladies had no real problem to speak of. But I loved it, and I still love it, and I'm finna watch the shit this weekend. I am. You too can watch it on HBO Max. So tune in and tell all the people to tune in. And then for all the real fans, let's have a kiki about it.